Thank you for watching this replay. Before you begin, you might like to download the worksheet that you can find in the Learning Portal, and you can use that to follow along the video and capture your own answers so that you get the full value out of the coaching that I'm going to be offering.
Okay, so it is group coaching, as I say, because it's practical. I'll be setting you up with a coaching exercise that we'll all work along together. I've got my worksheet as well, so I'll be doing it as well. We'll get some chance to chat and share what you've come up with, but it's very practical. And today's topic is about success factors. The idea is that NLP can help us to work out exactly what parameters are the most important for each one of us in our individual and unique situations. What are the things that we need to be paying attention to at any point in time? And I'm going to do this with some very simple questions that you can ask yourself. There we are. Let me just first of all show you, that's my favorite picture from our wedding day, and I've put that up because we're not going to do introductions of everybody. It's only an hour call and it'll take time, but I did want to introduce myself. As I say, I love my new name and I love this picture as well. So there you are. That's us signing the register 2 weeks ago.
Lovely.
So let's get started. I'm going to take you through what's sometimes called a success factor quiz. I don't really like quiz. It always sounds a bit like it's just for fun or that there's right or wrong answers. So I've called it a worksheet. And this is exactly the worksheet I use at least once a quarter. So I normally do it. So I'll next be doing it in earnest for myself on the 1st of October, which is the beginning of my new quarter. And I've been doing it for for more than 10 years, once a quarter, this exact quiz that I'm going to be sharing with you. And what I find is that it really primes my thinking processes and gets me to start focusing on where do I need to be paying my attention? Perhaps what have I let slip? Have I got things out of balance a bit? What needs a bit of a boost? And I track back my responses, so I can actually look back almost 10 years to see how things have ebbed and flowed, and that's really useful to look at patterns. And I also pull it out sometimes, for example, when I'm starting a new project, or if I just want a quick health check, I'll pull this out. So it's one of my absolute favorite go-to tools. It's not one that comes up in the standard NLP practitioner syllabus, so it might not be one that you've seen before in exactly this form, but the concepts will be very familiar to you. And it's quite simple. If you get your worksheet out in front of you, there are going to be 10 questions. I'm going to talk through them all as we go, so that as I talk, you can be scoring yourself and jotting down any thoughts and responses to each question. And what you do is you don't answer the question in a narrative. You give yourself a score from 0 to 10. Okay. I've deliberately only left a tiny space for jotting down notes. That's just in case there was something you wanted to remind yourself why you gave yourself a particular score. In this quiz, the narrative comes later. It's getting the score first, because what we're looking for is where should we be focusing. Okay, so 0 is like not at all or low, and 10 is very much, fully, or high. So the first question is going to be, quite simply, how strong is your sense of purpose in life? How strong is your sense of purpose in life? Don't take any time, just pop a circle around the number that comes to you straight away. How strong is your sense of purpose in life? And what you might find is that you just are drawn to a number without even knowing what the answer is. Trust your gut instinct. Go for it. Don't spend too long overthinking it. Has everybody jotted down a number? Perfect. So we've got a good range of numbers coming up, which is fantastic. I find that this one varies the most for me. And I find it fascinating to see when is it stable and when is it varying. So it's a really interesting one. Now, related to that question though, is how did you respond to the word purpose? Now, there isn't a question on the worksheet for that. This is a supplementary question. How did you respond to the word purpose? I've put this in for two reasons. For you, because it might be good to stop and ask yourself, do I have more than one purpose? And is the score the same for each purpose that I currently have? So I've put a score for myself of 6 because I'm thinking of one aspect, but if I was to think of a different aspect of purpose, I might score it a 9 or I might score it a 2. So how did you respond? Some people, the second reason why I wanted to put this in is especially for those of you that coach others, some people respond to the word purpose with a, like, what, I don't have a purpose, or even, what do you mean by purpose? What does that even mean? And so it can be useful to just track whether that word is currently problematic for you or whether it has any different connotations. Because ultimately it's up to everybody to define their own purpose. But if they don't even recognize the value of purpose, it can be really hard to make progress. So again, for those of you that are coaching others, if they don't recognize the word purpose or the validity, in my experience, that makes them very hard to coach. And I often will stop there and won't carry on until that bit's kind of cleared up. It's about being honest and open with yourself. So also, for those of you that have more than one purpose, and if you've scored perhaps one that's going really well, the honesty and openness is to think about some of your other purposes that aren't perhaps going so well, because that's where you probably need to be paying more attention. So moving on, the next question, on a scale of 0 to 10, do you have a very simple plan to move towards achieving your purpose? There's a few elements of that. Do you have a very simple plan to move towards achieving it? Again, if you want to give yourself a score, if you want to share the score, feel free. Moving on. Have you defined some focus areas, hotspots, and milestones? Focus areas, your immediate priorities. Hotspots, it depends how you define it. Some people define hotspots as potential blockages, problem areas, and so on. And some people focus hotspots as things that are coming up that they need to pay particular attention to, that are going to particularly affect your priority. It's up to you what makes sense to you. And then obviously milestones, actual events or dates that you can use to tick off progress towards your plan. Next question. Do you appreciate what you have now, regardless of where you are? Do you appreciate what you have now, regardless of where you are? This is a really interesting one. Do you appreciate what you have now, regardless of where you are? It can be a paradox. Sometimes when people score highly in their purpose and their plan and their actions, so the first 3, they're so busy focusing ahead into the future that they forget to appreciate the now. And if you're only living your life in the future, it can be a very ungrounded existence. So this question gives balance. So again, scoring yourself on that one. Where are you at? Moving on. Do you have a simple and short way of reviewing and reflecting on how you've done every day? Do you have a simple and short way of reflecting on how you've done every day? Okay, it's an interesting one. Reflection is proven by psychological studies over and over again to be one of the most valuable tools. Reflection stops you from making the same mistake over and over again, which is something a lot of us can fall into. If you've ever found yourself making a commitment to something like, I don't know, exercising daily or phoning your mum once a week or something, and then you find yourself having to make the same commitment all over again because you didn't follow through. And it's really interesting how reflecting is a great way of stopping and noticing, okay, what went wrong? What did I do? What didn't I do? What did I do? What could I do differently next time? And daily reflection in particular, it has to be very short, otherwise we don't tend to do it, but it can really add value. Some people like to add in other time periods as well, but certainly daily reflection is really worthwhile. Okay. This is an interesting one. Are you able to speak your mind without hesitation, make your own decisions and take action on them? It's another example where some people will answer it with one score if you're thinking about just generally, but a different score if you're thinking about one particular area of your life. So it's up to you. You make your own choice as to what context you're using for this question. Are you able to speak your mind without hesitation, make your own decisions and take action on them? Next one. How well do you connect to those people who are important to you? How well do you connect to those people who are most important to you? Again, go with your instinct. All the questions are capable of being interpreted in different ways, and the right answer is what's the right answer to you. How well do you connect with those people who are important to you? Next question is, how happy are you with the time that you invest in yourself? How happy are you with the time that you invest in yourself? The remaining two questions drill down in on this topic. Again, before I move on to them, it's really important to get a sense that this quiz is giving you balance. And so quite often people score high in the last questions and low in the first ones, or high in the first ones and low in the last ones. And again, it's showing like, where are you putting your time and your priority and your effort? So this one, the next one coming up, is how well do you build physical health? So build and maintain. How well do you build and maintain physical health? All aspects there. So diet, nutrition, exercise, regular maintenance, getting health checks, all of those kinds of things. There's a lot of different aspects to it, but how well do you build and maintain your physical health? Perfect. And obviously related to that, how well do you build and maintain your mental resilience? Can be all sorts of different things for different people. Some people like to meditate or do art or hobbies. Whatever your mental health is for you. Other people get regular mentoring or therapy. So as always, the definition is whatever it is to you. Okay. Anyone got a little reflection or anything that cropped up at this stage that they'd like to share?
I've paused the recording at this point because the participants on the live call then started to have a discussion about their answers to the questionnaire, and some of it's personal and confidential, and I have a policy of not recording or obviously making public anything that's confidential. So take this moment of reflection to look back over your answers and see what has emerged for you. And I'll pick up the recording in a moment or two.
So notice already what the message that your emotions are telling you. That if it's giving you that response, clearly it needs some attention. And the kindest and most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say, right, I'm going to give that one the attention it needs to shift it up a couple of points if it's, you know. It's so interesting. Our emotional reaction will tell you, you already know what you know what you need to do, but sometimes it just needs the question to be asked to trigger it. Yeah. Most of us have a sense of you're always trying to do the right thing. You're always trying to do your best, but you can get consumed by what's the best for others. And that, as you say, telling yourself that's the best for me as well. Yeah. But it isn't always. And at the end of the day, I mean, an example I always used to give about when I worked in the corporate world, and my whole career was about meeting other people's objectives. It was a corporate, you know, a company that has objectives, and my job is to meet their needs. And it felt like, while I'm doing that, I'm valued and I'm important. And the thing that really hit it home to me was the day I resigned, and I had a month to work my notice, and it was already as though I thought I was working on a really important project and that I mattered, and that, you know, my colleagues were my friends. And the day I resigned, it was almost as though I became invisible and nothing mattered anymore. They'd already moved on, because that wasn't about me at all. And that really hit home to me. It was a big lesson. Unfortunately, I had to then learn it again by going to another job, and the same thing happened, and another job, the same thing happened. And it's so interesting, because you could say the same about, I know parents who say the same about their children. Like, when their children leave home, you've done everything for your children, and then they leave home. Like at the moment, they're going off to university, aren't they? My nieces and nephews are going away, and at one level, they'll always need their parents, but another level, they don't need you. They walk away without a backward glance. They've got a whole new life. And you suddenly think, hang on, what have I been doing to just put my children first, you know, and now they don't need me anymore, and I've still got my life to lead. Now, I've used two quite extreme examples, but in a way, and I'm not saying at all that you shouldn't care about your job and you shouldn't care about your children. I'm not saying that at all. I want to pick up the word you said, Francis, and that's balance. Balance is absolutely, we can't exist without other people, and therefore doing things with them and for them is vital, but also we exist in our own right. You are valuable. You are a valuable and important human being in your own right. And caring for yourself is I would go as far as saying it's a sacred duty. The very fact that you exist, you should be taking, we should, each of us should be taking care of what we've got.
Can I just
go on?
At the moment, I mean, I'm scoring quite high on this at the moment because I'm in a really good place in my life, partly because I've just finished building a course that's about helping people in retirement. Focus, precisely as Francis was saying, not on everybody else that you've done throughout the whole of your life, but focusing then on yourself and giving yourself the best possible retirement, you know, all the emotional and psychological factors that retirement brings, and it's about addressing that. And I've been bathing in that for a couple of months now as I've been building it. And, you know, I've got my life set up around what I've been talking about through the course. That basically it's mostly about me, you know, and it's lovely. I'm really enjoying my life at the moment, you know, and that's how I would like everybody to have their retirement, you know, just you've done all that work for all those decades for everybody else, for your children, for your employers. When you get to retirement, my God, you deserve it, you know. It's all about what you want every day. So yeah.
No, it's a really good point. I think it's also important to notice as well, this is why I do this quarterly, is because it's reflecting on the change. So like Pam, you're saying, you know, you're scoring highly right now. I don't know, 12 months ago, 12 months ago, it might have been different. Not in all of them, but in some of them. And in 12 months' time, it might be different as well.
Well, thanks for that, Madeline.
Oh, it might be even higher. I'm going to send you a score sheet that goes up to 20, Pam. Yeah. But I like, because our lives do go in cycles as well. One of the things I like about this tool, some of you might have used something called the Wheel of Life that divides your life up like a pie. So you've got like, you know, health, hobbies, learning, work, money, and so on. And it's similar in some ways, but for me, this has a slightly different balance. I sometimes use them both side by side, but this has a different way of looking at things. Perfect.
But I think it's also good to ask these questions yourself, you know, in the regular intervals, because you forget it or you forget to ask these questions, you know. Or think about it. I love the cat tail.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Brilliant. No, we've got a couple of cats on this, or we did have Pam had a cat earlier on. So
still got one.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, brilliant.
He's sound asleep.
Couple of other questions I've got for you now, and it's just to focus. These questions are, oh no, I have put them on the worksheet. I wasn't sure if I had done or not. Couple of other questions to ask yourself. So if you want to take a moment now just to think about these. First of all, how well did you engage with the questions? Now, ask yourself that both for the questions as a whole, but also for any individual questions. For example, and this is the second question, did you notice any areas of resistance or reluctance to be honest with yourself? So that could include the emotional reaction Abby described, or it could be, I know I've done this before, I've circled a 10 for one question, but in the back of my mind there's a little bit of voice going, yeah, but in this other area of my life actually it's only a 6 or 3, you know. And so putting the 10 down felt right, but it was not completely honest, let's say. So I wasn't lying to myself, but maybe not complete. So just think about that. Did you notice any areas of resistance, emotion, or reluctance to be honest with yourself? Scan back over the questions if you want and add a note or a reflection if it'll help you. So those 2 reflections are about reflecting on the process. And the last 3 are going to be reflecting on what you can take away and actually do. So looking back over the success factors questionnaire or worksheet, if you could only pick one of the questions to raise the score by a couple of points, which one would have the biggest benefit in your life right now? I mean, right now, like this week. I'm not talking about 6 months or towards your big goal. I'm talking right now, today. Which one would have the biggest benefit if you could raise the score by a couple of points right now? And building on that, what score would you like to attain for the one that you've chosen? What score would you like to attain? And that'll depend on what your starting point is. What I would add to that is pop a time scale in there. So you might say to yourself, like, I scored 3 to start with. Ideally, I'd like to get it up to a 7, but within the next month, I'd like to get it up by just 1 or 2 points to a 4 or a 5. And maybe I'll get it to a 7 by next year, you know. So you decide. It's your scale. It's a subjective scale. But what helps is to pop a time scale on it. And it can be really good to have like a short-term and a long-term time scale. For me, this is where my, the hotspots, do you remember that, the question about hotspots, milestones, and focus areas? This is where this comes into play. So sometimes I might have a date in my head that is around one of my hotspots. There's an event coming up, for example, or, you know, people often use Christmas as a deadline for health goals, for example. So you'll know what's right for you. So what score would you like to attain, and pop a time scale on that. And then the important thing, everyone who has studied NLP will know that it is both an outcome-oriented and an action-oriented discipline. So in effect, you've stated an outcome now. So now we've got the second part, which is an action. What action can you take right now? And I mean right now, like today, or at the very least this week. But what action can you take right now to begin to raise that score? Baby steps. Yeah. Don't commit an action that you then have to spend ages thinking about how will I do it. Choose an action that you already feel confident, I can do that and I will do that, and it will take me closer to where I want to be. Yeah. So a baby step, because that's how progress is made, literally one foot in front of the other. I only need to know the next step. I don't actually need to know the final step at this stage. So what action do you want to take? Okay. I'm going to come back to your action. I just want to tell you a little bit about my action, because I said earlier I'm going to do breakfast sessions on a regular basis, Bite Size NLP. And the idea is exactly what I said before. It's what I wish I had So it's kind of like a coach, but without having to invest in a coach. Accountability, to remind myself to apply these things. Exactly what Diane said, you know, these questions are really good to ask yourself if you remember to ask them. So it's that's what I want to be offering starting from next month, Bite Size NLP, as a group coaching club, basically, to apply NLP into your life. So every month will be a call like this one, focusing on something that's useful. It's going to be on the second Tuesday of every month. And all the usual extras, like a private Facebook group, recordings of past calls, bonus materials, and so on. So if that's something that you're going to be interested in, do let me know, and I'll be able to send you more information, and I will be sending out an email after this call. But just to let you know, that's my plan, to do this on a regular basis. Again, coming back to, I know I would have found it useful. So what action are you going to take? Who would like to share their action?
I put mine up in the chat, so
you put yours in, saying,
yeah, at the moment I work really late, so I end up watching TV really late to unwind after work, and then I end up being really tired in the morning and not getting up to do all my exercise that I'd like to do before I start that horrible work thing all over again. Well, not horrible, I don't mind my work, but yeah, I am getting into a pattern of 14-hour days at the moment in working, and need a bit more time to me. But also the TV then seems to have crept in. Yeah, I didn't even watch TV for a few years, and all of a sudden it's come back. Binge watching Netflix.
Interesting how those will make a difference. And also notice how you've mentioned there your own change in habits. So it went from not watching TV to binge watching. And again, when you track these kinds of things on a regular basis, you can see those. And what you can learn to do as well is begin to see the warning signs, like when does it change? When does it creep? All those good intentions creep out of the window, and all the bad habits creep back in again. So that can be really useful. Great. Good action.
Sorry, I was just going to say that the other thing, that the bad habits creep in with that. When I started watching TV, I found I was drinking wine and eating chocolates with it. So it's all spiraling.
Yeah. Everything is interconnected. Absolutely everything. Yeah. Absolutely everything is interconnected. Perfect. Someone else like to share their action?
Yeah, during lockdown have become strangely addicted to Zoom.
Yeah,
there's just been so much on, and to be quite honest, it's great because it's sustained me through this period, you know, and given me a lot of pleasure and joy and fun and learning. However, we're now getting into the winter, and it was easier during the summer because, you know, you would toddle outside into the garden and you would do more stuff outside. But I don't like the cold, and I don't like the wet, you know, and we could be in a lockdown position again at some point during the winter. And from an exercise point of view, I kind of fall into the sloth category. I know of to do it, but I really hate it. So I really need to do something about exercise during the winter. You know, so that's going to be a case of every day I need to make a point of getting out and walking or doing something. Yeah. To break that indoor habit of sitting on Zoom calls and doing various things like that, you know.
Excellent.
Again, it's balance.
It is balance.
My mind has been nourished well, but my body hasn't been nourished quite as much.
You won't be alone, I think, or it's been overnourished. with wine and chocolate. Yeah, absolutely. Good. And spotting it is the first step, isn't it? And then doing something about it. So what's your specific first action, Frances?
To walk every day, and probably in the morning before I get down to anything else, you know, a quick cup of tea and out and do a walk.
Yes.
Yeah.
So today, after this call, are you going for a walk?
Yes.
Perfect. And tomorrow morning, are you going for a walk?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Even if it means getting up earlier to do it, you know.
Yeah, totally. It can make a real difference. Pam is a good person to follow in her social media feed. She posts lovely photographs of the walks and bike rides that she goes on. She's very good at building all that activity into her life. Yeah.
I was just going to say that, Frances, you said that you really don't like the cold. I was trying to think of some way you could make that positive for yourself, like buying yourself some really nice warm clothes to go out in the winter, you know, sort of with fun going out in them, you know. Try to make it something you enjoy, because you can't force yourself to do it. It just becomes a chore and you won't stick to it. So it's about finding some way to get some joy out of it, or you just won't do it.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's very true. And all habits that are, as you say, a chore, or like, oh, I've got to, you end up feeling resentful about. But habits that, if you can find a way to enjoy it, as Pam said, it's much more likely to stick.
Yeah.
It's the same with things like food. If you feel like you're denying yourself chocolate and wine, it becomes almost something you start to obsess over, and you quickly break your good intentions. But if you, instead of thinking of it as a denial or a chore or a problem, that you can find yourself, or or promise yourself a treat, but it's only 2 squares of dark chocolate rather than an entire bar or something. It's all about how you think about it. It's all about your mindset. It really is. And finding that positive. Perfect. Okay, how are we doing for time? So we have 5 minutes left. Because I promised I would finish by 9 o'clock, and we're nearly there. So I have a quick set of coaching questions for all of you. Think about your action. And this is a great one to do for yourself, but think about the action that you've chosen and ask yourself this question: what has to happen? And then what has to happen to make that happen? So if your action is going for a walk every day, what has to happen might be, as Pam suggested, making it fun and feeling warm. So what has to happen to make that happen? Make sure you've got a nice warm coat and thick waterproof boots and warm socks, for example. So whatever it is for you, what has to happen and what has to happen to make that happen? Take a few moments, jot down any answers to those questions. And whatever you've come up with, can that happen? So can you find a warm coat and warm boots? Can you choose a walking route that you'll enjoy? Can you get up 10 minutes earlier to fit your walking in? Whatever it is, can that happen? Guess what? Although it's not on the screen, if the answer is no, then you go back to the beginning of these questions. So what has to happen? If I can't do that, what has to happen so that I can take action? This is where my plan Z I was telling you about comes in. I always think, right, so what's the worst that can happen? Okay, what has to happen to stop that from happening, or what has to happen for it to go well? And you should end up with a very granular, like small chunk, tiny choices of specific actions that you need to take. So the last question is simply one of commitment. Will that happen? Just ask yourself, will I do whatever it is I've committed to? Okay. So I'm going to ask each of you, will you do what you've just committed to? Will you do your actions? Yeah, Helen's nodding.
Yep.
Diane's nodding, Abby's nodding, Pam's nodding, Francis is nodding. I am. You will. Fantastic. If you want to share your chosen action in the chat box, that would be fantastic. It's optional, but if you want to share it, that would be great. And we'll keep you accountable. And that is the, oh, well done, Jen. Love it. Jen's going to apply for a job. Cool. Got a few others coming in. That's superb. Yeah, nice one. Yeah, lovely. Fantastic. Lovely. So Francis, I've been doing walking every day. I've found now getting up in the morning, going for a walk has honestly made such a difference. So that's a great one. Love it. What I just then, to round it off, just to ask you to reflect on what you've taken away from today and what you enjoyed the most. Anyone like to comment something they've taken away or something they've enjoyed from today?
I think it's just nice to think about these simple questions that are so important again, isn't it? Because you can tend to, you know about them, but you forget to actually reflect on them. And
absolutely. Good, Pam. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hoped people would, because that's how I felt. And it's so easy to forget them. That you hit the nail on the head. And I kept thinking, what is it that I need or would have liked help with? And that's, so it's great. And Diane has also commented that she loved the questions. Yeah, good. They're so simple and so effective. Genuinely, as I say, I do them once a quarter at the minimum, and I do revisit them from time to time, and I always find it useful. Good. Okay.
And it was really useful you talking us through them, because you can just read through the questions and like a minute flat and oh yes, okay. But it's actually taking that time to think about each one, give it the time and attention it needs, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's right. And for that reason, one of the other things I'm doing now, so some of you know that I have very few one-to-one coaching slots, but again, it's exactly what Francis was saying about Zoom. One of the things Zoom has enabled is actually more effective use of time. And so I'm opening up some more one-to-one coaching slots, and it's going to be around success factors, whatever it is for you. So coaching on your areas of priority. So again, if you think you'd like to take, for example, these questions or any other areas that's a priority for you and get some help to drill down, it's what Pam was saying about talking through and reflecting, not just reading the questions at face value. Do drop me a message and we can talk about what that involves. I'll put that out in an email to you afterwards as well, the details of one-to-one coaching. So if that's something you might be interested in. I love Helen's just made a comment. I remembered why I'm not tackling other areas, and so I can stop feeling bad about that. Yes, be kind to yourself. There's always a reason. Everything is connected. So if one thing is dropping, it's because something else needed the attention, or there will be a reason. So yeah, that's great. Abby, lovely to see you. I know you've got to go. Thank you very much. Last question. I would love it if you pop into the learning portal and leave a review for today. That would be really, really useful. The other thing, for those, some of you know what the NLP Grapevine is. If you don't, every month on the last Thursday of the month, I do a live Zoom call. It costs £15. It's a little bit longer because I do a bit of teach as well, and there's time for discussion. The September Grapevine is on the last Thursday of the month, which I can't see it on my screen. I'm really sorry. There's a timer come up on my screen that's hidden everything, but I think it's the 28th of September. Does that sound about right? Oh, there we are, 24th of September. And it's going to be about, when you have more than one little voice in your head and they don't always agree, we call that parts of you. And we're going to be exploring that. So it would be lovely to see you at the Grapevine. And other than that, I think we're done. And that's 9:02. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please
thank you very much, Madeline.
Leave a comment or anything. And
bye, Mrs. Rivera.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Bye.